Welcome to episode number 135 of Broad Street Hustle. I'm your host, Jason Sayeda, and tonight will most likely be a quick episode. We're going to review the Eagles Rams game, we're going to preview the Eagles Ravens game, we'll do our weekly handicapping, and probably be it. But tonight's episode is brought to you, as always, by Giovannini's Pizza. You've tried the rest, now try the best. Giovannina's. So Tommy cannot join us tonight, but we are joined by our usual other co-host. The first is Jimmy the Chalk. What's up, Chalky?
What's up, Jason?
Not a whole hell of a lot. And then also we are joined by our last place finisher. Let's not forget in the Broad Street Hustle Trivia Contest, Chris Meeker. What's
So
up,
holding on to
Meeker?
that. Has Giovannina's given away any free pizzas in the last week?
For the Sixers, I think one, right?
Yeah, they beat Brooklyn, right? So
They did beat Brooklyn, yeah. So
Some folks were able to capitalize on that, huh? How
I have
about
a
that?
feeling that promotion will actually not have to pay out too much this year. But anyway, all right, let's quickly move to the Rams Eagles game. The Eagles wound up being a lot easier than I think most of us thought. I believe Meeker and myself both didn't even think the Eagles were going to win the game. But I thought you and Tommy, thought it would be a close game, but the Eagles are going to pull it off, which they did pretty impressively. I thought both lines dominated the game, especially the offensive line. Um, Barkley obviously benefited the most with that. I mean, obviously he's a great player, but that line was opening holes that we probably could have ran through. I also it's probably going to be a losing bet, but I had to. I was looking around that night, uh, probably late first quarter. I started looking around for Barkley MVP odds, and I saw like 12-1 on DraftKings, and like it was 12-1 on FanDuel. Got the ESPN, it was 40-1.
Hmm.
So I put a bet down. After the game, it's like plus 650 all across the board. So I don't think he'll get it. They give it to quarterbacks, but I mean, you never know if he breaks records and none of the quarterbacks are impressive this year. It could happen. But I thought a big part of the game was Brandon Graham, and wound up getting hurt. So, I mean, that could be a big injury. But those are my thoughts. Like I said, they won kind of easily. Chalky, what do you got?
uh, good performance on both sides of the ball, like you said. I would say I do think it was a little bit of an easier win. Even a close score, I wasn't thinking it was going to be like a backdoor, touchdown, which they got, but that only made it like a 2-score game or whatever, 3-score game. The Graham, I really think the Graham injury is going to hurt them a lot because he has been their most consistent end/edge rusher that they've had all year. And Huff is now out for however long after having that wrist surgery or whatever. So Sweat's starting to come on. He's been playing well. He's been getting some sacks, and Smith has a good game. Doesn't show up. I don't remember his name getting called once the other night. So he's hot and cold. So, I mean, I said this like week whatever, and I was like, man, if Graham's going to be your best lineman all year, you're going to be in trouble. And he's been their best DN. He's been their most consistent, and it's one of his 2 or 3 best seasons in year 15 or whatever. So I think that's going to hurt them. And, for a guy that's going to go down in Eagles history as a legend, if that is his last game, no matter whether they win the Super Bowl this year or not, it's a sad ending. And he's really, one of the great guys from everything everybody says. So, we'll see. But it's going to hurt him on the field 100%. He's not their best lineman because Carter, again, got double teamed on 80% of the plays or whatever and still made plays. So, and those first 2 drives, they didn't face a third down the first 2 drives, LA. They turned the ball over on the first one, then scored a second. So it looked like, this could be a long night. Defense comes back with 3 straight 3-and-outs. So they made adjustments, and they got them off the field. Hurts was okay, not great, not bad. He missed one or two throws or missed opportunities for touchdowns in the air, but nice throw on the AJ Brown touchdown. And he's using his legs again. I said it maybe 2 weeks ago, but all of a sudden he doesn't look so slow and he doesn't look so hesitant anymore when he pulls it down and goes, and that's very reminiscent of 2022. And that's keeping plays alive or getting the first down there allows them to set up and do some other things by keeping the drives going. So, again, overall, I think a very good win. I'm not overly impressed with the Rams as it is now anyway, but, you go out there and you get a good win. And really, after that first play, the second half, I know the Rams came back and scored, but it wasn't really in doubt to me once Barkley hit that, whatever, 70-yarder to start the second half.
Yeah, we'll get to Hertz in a little bit 'cause I have some thoughts on him. But going back to Graham, I remember when he was drafted, wasn't there like not a controversy, but a lot of people were saying they should have taken Earl Thomas. Wasn't Earl Thomas that
Yeah.
was the
Um,
safety
Safety
to
for Seattle.
yep.
Seattle? Yeah. Because Earl Thomas wound up being a Pro Bowler, like
Yeah,
a
Mhm.
it was a
bunch of
great player.
years. I mean,
Jason Pierre-Paul that went one or two picks later, the Giants, and that was a guy that people were saying for years, oh, you should have took him.
right. Yeah. I mean, how could you complain now about Brandon Graham? So, Meeker, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think this was the most complete game the Eagles played this year, honestly. Both lines, as you said, Jason, dominated. Saquon was running through massive holes throughout the game. And when he gets to the second level, he's obviously a huge problem for a defense. Obviously, a historic game for him. Breaking the single game rushing record, and I think he's on his way to breaking the single season rushing record as an Eagle. And I thought that Hertz had an efficient game. I didn't think he was great, but he didn't really have to do too much in this game. As Chalky said, he connected to Brown on some nice plays, but he's been keeping the ball out of harm's way. He's not throwing interceptions, and he's taking opportunities when it's there, with his legs, and he's extending drives on third down, getting a lot of first downs on third with his legs. Which, if you look at the stats, one of the biggest stats of the game, Eagles were 9 of 15 on third down. The Rams were 0 for 8 on third down in this game. That's a big reason why the Eagles won. Which brings me to the Eagles defense, which, they've been getting pressure and during this win streak, and they got to Stafford in this game 4 times. I think Milton Williams probably had the best game of the year for him. Dean got to Stafford, Carter, Sweat, so everyone was chipping in. The only thing, like you guys have mentioned, that dampened this loss was Graham's injury. But they're rolling and they're playing their best football of the season right now. But I don't think this is going to turn into 2023. I mean, the way that they're playing now versus how they ended last year, I just can't see that happening. So I think if they can keep this going, they're going to be well situated for the playoffs as we enter the tail end of the season here.
The whole thing. I mean, obviously Milton Williams played well, but it kind of reminds me of when Mike Golick
Yeah.
and Pitts played well because Jerome Brown and Reggie White were getting double. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
were double teaming Carter the whole game. So
But
that
to Williams' credit, he's making plays. He's getting his name called. You don't hear that about Jordan Davis.
oh,
So the fact that Davis isn't giving you really much of anything, and I'm not
I
hearing people say, "Oh, Davis is
couldn't
playing
agree
well,
more.
but he's just not getting his name called. He's not showing up in the stat book." I'm not seeing anything like that. So
I
Williams stepping up is offsetting the negative of that first round pick not panning out.
Yeah, that's
I
why
couldn't agree more.
opportunities
I
for
mean, you
like
guys know
Nolan
my thoughts
Smith
on Davis.
and
Yeah.
but that wasn't happening. I
Yeah.
mean, not that it's a little bit of a different part of the season, but it wasn't really happening as much with Huff. Like Huff wasn't getting to the quarterback as much
Yeah.
as he has. It's different position too, but
Yeah. And as far as Hertz is concerned, they're just totally, you know, taking the load off of him. Like he doesn't have to do much at all. And the reason he doesn't is because they're getting leads and they're able to continue to run the ball. The issue I believe that's going to eventually happen is when they don't have the lead early in the game, and then they're going to have to start throwing the ball, and that's where his warts are going to start showing. But as long as they could jump out the leads on these teams and just continue to pound Barkley and Gainwell and the short passes and stuff like that, he'll be all right. But
Yeah, I would just say this about what you're talking about here. I mean, whether they have leads or whether they, are down maybe 7 points in a game, 10 points in a game, I don't see the Eagles just like abandoning the run because they feel like they have to pass. So the fact that they're just going to continue to run the ball because that's their strength gives Hurts a lot more windows, to make plays. Guys are open.
but there's
And
there's a difference. There's circumstances, right? It's all circumstantial, right? You could obviously, if you continue to run the ball and get chunks of 8 yards every play, yeah, you can continue to do it. But you're just not going to. You're not going to do that when you're behind. When you're behind in the game, you're going to throw the ball. That's the way the NFL is. That's the way they call it, and that's just the way. I mean, you can look at the Ravens the same way. The Ravens' offense is similar, right? I mean, I think Jackson's a better quarterback than Hurts, but it's a similar thing. Like as long as they could pound the ball with Henry, and Lamar Jackson could take off and run for 7, 8 yards when he has to and stuff like that, it's fine. When they're down in the game, and if they're down 2 scores and it's the beginning of the fourth quarter, they're not going to run the ball like that. You're going to start throwing the ball, and even earlier in the game, it's just that the mentality is you need to pass to get a lead, right, and then run to maintain the lead.
Yeah.
So, but in any event, it was like we all said, it was an impressive win, a seventh win in a row. They basically have the division locked up at this point. So now they have this tough game coming up this week. We could kind of transition to this Ravens game, which for some reason is a 4:25 game, I believe, this week. It's kind of odd, but I'll throw it to you, Chalky, to kind of give your thoughts on the game. Obviously, this will be their best test of the year. But what do you think?
So, I mean, it's got the makings of a potential heavyweight fight. You have the best offense in the league in terms of yards per game playing against the best defense in the league in terms of yards per game given up. Eagles are the number one rushing team. Baltimore is second. And just look at the stats. Actually, I didn't realize Baltimore, they're the best offense. Like I said, they are third in passing. So Jackson, and they got Henry, and Jackson is known to run, but they're throwing for a lot too. And Jackson is responsible for 30 touchdowns. Only 3 of them are rushing. He's thrown 27 touchdown passes so far this year. And I was watching just some highlights somebody posted on Twitter, but like he's got 3 interceptions, and all 3 of them went off of his receiver's hands before getting picked off. So he's not making a lot of errors in the air, and he's obviously making some plays. So where the Eagles have been able to cause turnovers in the right times, that might be a little harder to do this week. I think they had 4 forced fumbles Sunday night. They only recovered the 1, but they were getting to it. So, I mean, this is a game at the start of the year that I would have had down as a loss. Like, you're coming from the West Coast, blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't looking to see that. Baltimore played in the same stadium a night later and then was coming back, and I'm looking at the beginning of the year. But it had the makings of a potential loss. And 7 in a row, they're playing well. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I really think they can definitely win this game. And you see the line. The line's 2 weeks ago, the pre-line was 2.5 or 3. So that hasn't changed. So the Eagles beating these guys and Ravens losing to the Steelers and then beating the Chargers hasn't changed anything. I just think in the end, one of the 2 things I'm going to say is, so Slay is out. So, okay, you got a team that can throw the ball. That's going to hurt you. And Smith is still questionable. I don't feel confident that he's going to play. I'd lean toward he's probably not, based on some. He said today he's not sure if he'll be ready. I think for a regular season game against the Ravens, you need all your weapons there, and to be able to not have, I was surprised they're able to move the ball as well last week without Smith. If he can't play this week, I think it is going to hurt them a lot more, because the Ravens are a team that can put up points, and if you're playing from behind, that's going to be a problem. I think in the end, it's just going to be too much with the Ravens, and the Eagles are just going to come up a little bit short. So but I think it'll be a fairly high scoring game. I'm thinking like 34-27 Baltimore in the end.
So let me go back to your point on Jackson and his passing, and I think it's a similar situation to the Eagles' offense with Hurts. These guys might be, their stats might be good for their passing, but it's because there's still a threat for them to be running, right? So you're able to throw the ball because whether you have the lead or it's a close game or whatever, there's always the threat of Hurts taking off, of Jackson taking off, of Barkley running or Henry running. But when there's a point when if one of these teams gets a nice lead, I think you're going to see the warts come out on the other quarterback, because now the other team doesn't care if you run the ball because they know you're probably not going to run the ball. So now, they're dropping into zones and letting Hurts try to figure out zones and Jackson and stuff like that. And I think that's, both of these offenses to me are similar, and the quarterbacks are similar. I still would think Jackson's a better quarterback than Hurts, but I think they're kind of similar. So remains to be seen for me. I'm still not convinced that these guys are efficient enough passers when the threat is not there for them to run. I'll throw it to Meeker, and then I'll give my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, well, both teams possess, as you're talking about, the same strengths in this game. Obviously the run game. They're the two best teams in football running the ball. Both have quarterbacks that can make plays and extend plays with their legs. Get third down. Get first downs on third and long with their legs. Don't have to pass to get these third downs. Offensively, the rate, and I know that Chalky kind of said some of these stats. The best red zone offense in the league. They're third in the league in third down efficiency. They're second in the league in touchdowns per game, second in points, first in yards. So this is a huge test for the Eagles defense, and they come into the game without Darius Slay, as you mentioned, which will play a big part in how I think this game shakes out. I guess Chalky and Jason, they're going to kind of mix and match with Rodgers and Maddox and whoever else at corner in this game.
I hope it's not Maddox.
That Rodgers does not look good from what I
didn't look good. I don't know if it was.
He played all right earlier in the year, but he did not look good Sunday.
No,
night.
not Sunday.
Yeah, wasn't good. So, I think that's going to play a big part in the game. But the Ravens have also lost, or he's doubtful, Kyle Van Noy, I think, who leads the team in sacks. So that might affect their pass rush, which hasn't been bad. Their pass defense has been awful. They're one of the worst in the league, but their pass rush isn't too bad. So as Jason was alluding to, I think a lot of focus is going to be on the running backs and the running game in this league. But I think what it comes down to is the quarterbacks in this game. Is who's going to have the better game at quarterback. So say what you want about Lamar, but this may be his best season all around, especially passing. He hasn't thrown a lot of interceptions, as Chalky said, but he hasn't had to throw the ball that much. Kind of similar to what's going on with Hurts. He's, I think, 28th. I was looking it up, 28th in the league in passes per game.
And so he has 30 or 31st, I think.
Yeah, they're right at the bottom of the NFL in passes per game. So, and that's obviously because they have Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and good offensive lines and been able to run the ball like they have. But I think in this game, it might come down to what quarterback makes the plays, makes the throws. I trust Jackson more than I trust Hurts when we're talking about that kind of thing. Although, in the skill position part, I trust the Eagles' skill if Smith was playing, but we're thinking he's not at this point. If he was playing, I might trust the Eagles' skill position players a little bit more to make a play in that kind of circumstance than I do the Ravens. Not to say the Ravens skill position players aren't good; they are too. But a couple stats that I saw: Lamar Jackson is 23-1 versus NFC teams in his career. I was pretty surprised to see that. The Eagles' opponents' records in wins is 20 games under 500. The Ravens' opponents are about 500. So obviously, the Ravens have been playing better competition during the season. The Ravens are home. Obviously, both teams played on the West Coast last week, so no real advantage to the travel and all that stuff. I think, like Chalky, it's a high scoring game. It's going to be played in the 30s. But because the Ravens are home, I'm going to give them the advantage in this game, and I think they win 34-30.
So one thing, Meeker, you mentioned, and I didn't know that stat, the how infrequently they throw the ball or attempts per game is that. To me, I think we could say all we want about defenses and the threat of this. Jackson's leading the league in passing yards with that kind of pass frequency. So whether maybe it's receivers or they're just making a lot of big plays, this is an offense. This is the best offense that the Eagles have seen all year in totality, and it's an offense unlike any other one they've seen because there's very few players similar to Jackson in the league, and they haven't played anybody like it. So, Zay Flowers might go for 2 70-yard plays plus like this week because they're not passing it as much, but they're obviously making the most of when they're getting these completions because Jackson's got 3,000 yards already, lead the league.
Well, it just goes to say about how defenses have to play against a guy like Jackson, and there's going to be a lot of man coverage, and that might be
the threat of these guys running always opens up the passing game for them.
For big plays too, because it is man coverage.
Well, for Baltimore, there's no way you get to that number to lead the league if you're throwing the ball that infrequently without some big plays. And like last week, Rams seemed like they were running the same version, the same play over and over, but they were getting 7, 8 on some of these plays. They weren't taking big deep shots, and so this is going to be a completely different look that the Eagles are most likely going to see this week.
Yeah.
They're on TV a lot, so we watch the Ravens a lot. He just, one of the things is, he takes a lot of chances downfield and just trusts his receivers to make a play. And Hurts does the same thing with A.J. Brown and Smith.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's like, and I've seen them make the play, so like you say, they throw infrequently, but when they throw the ball, they're taking bigger shots down the field because they have that man coverage and take advantage of it. And I don't know, it's not luck or anything like that. He's making good throws, but I've seen a lot of games that they played this year where it's just, the wide receiver it's a one-on-one ball and they make a play, so.
Yeah.
That's why being out might be a problem in this game.
Yeah. Yes. So for me, I don't want to keep downplaying the Eagles, right? Because listen, they won 7 games in a row. They're obviously a good team. I just think they're at the height of their value right now, especially with the public. Like they're probably the most public team. Well, them or the Lions are the most public team in the league at this point. And I just think Meeker hit it on the head where they benefited from their opponents. Now you can only beat who you're playing, which they've done, but they are by far in the worst division in football, right? Maybe the AFC South is worse. I don't know. It could be because the Texans really aren't that good, but
I might lean NFC South being worse.
Well,
they lost to an NFC South team.
Dallas and the Giants are just god awful. Like I don't know how.
Well, if you're factoring in like Dallas without Dak, then yeah, that's obviously
right. They're just.
I think the Eagles are significantly better than anybody in the South right now, no matter how good you think they are or not. And the Commanders are probably as good as Tampa or Atlanta, maybe a little not quite as good as Atlanta. So
I don't know how much better than Tampa Bay they are. Now I know they didn't have the receivers in that game, but Tampa Bay ran up and down the field on them in that game. So I think they're better than them, but I don't know if they're significantly better than the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
but. So, I just think they've, and again, you can only beat who you're playing, and they have. But, and I'll go to on the other end and say the Ravens are coming in off a short week, right? They played Monday night.
Yep.
So that's going to hurt them a little bit. Um, but again, I think the Eagles' offense is benefiting from getting out to a lead and then being able to kind of run the ball and take the ball out of Hurts' hands and stuff like that. I don't think that's going to happen this week. I think the Ravens are a better team than the Eagles when it's all said and done. And if the short week does not affect them, I just think they're going to win the game. I kind of agree with you guys. I think it'll be high scoring. I'm going to say 30-24. Um, the Ravens win. But I mean, there should be points in the game. There should be, I'm not going to make over one of my picks because I never do, but I think the game's going to go over.
Yeah,
So
I think I don't know if I'd have, and you guys can tell me what you think, but I don't know if I would have a different opinion if Smith was playing in the game, but it would help if he's playing in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're not
Yeah.
gonna you're not getting anything out of your other. I mean, Dotson's not giving you anything.
no, he stinks.
Barkley becomes your second best because I mean it's not like they're even using Goddard, so Barkley becomes your second best pass catcher really with Smith out. I don't know if it would have been enough, but I had it as a fairly close game. So if he's out there, he can be good for one or two plays a game, and that might be the difference. That's often the difference when two relatively evenly matched teams play each other. One play one way or the other can make a difference. So, although I didn't know Van Noy was not going to play either, but
He's doubtful. But the Eagles' path, I mean, I think is just to really just wear them down. If their offensive line can wear the defensive line down and they can run the ball without having to play this shootout type of game, and control it going into the fourth quarter, especially, that could be their way of winning the game.
yeah, I think it's. We've said. I think it's similar because if you looked at that Monday night game, it was a 1-point game going into the fourth quarter, and then Baltimore just put two drives together and scored 2 touchdowns, and then that was it. And that's the way the Eagles have won some of these games this year. So, I mean, I don't know if Baltimore's more likely to get out to a lead of multiple touchdowns than the Eagles, but as each team wears each other down, I'll be interested to see in the fourth quarter who's got more left because they're both kind of trying to do the same thing against each other from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, I don't see either team as being a comeback team. I think both teams are teams that want to get the lead and then you know what I mean. Like a comeback team is usually a guy that could, you have a quarterback that could lead you to wins, and not that these guys can't, but I just think once the threat of them running is taken away, then their warts kind of show. So
Yeah, and the Ravens defense has a propensity for breaking down in fourth quarters because I saw a stat last week that the fourth quarter, I don't know, this is a crazy stat, but the fourth quarter, like whenever, if you go online and, bet over in the fourth quarter in Raven games, not because the Ravens scored too, but like from their defense, they also give up a lot of points in the fourth quarter because they wear down a little bit. It's like 9 out of the last 10 games have been over just in the fourth quarter alone. So,
all right, guys, let's move to some betting stats, and we will do league stats first. So it was a over week last week, big public over week, 10-3 to public, or the overs went last week. I just think, you guys know the last couple of years I bet a lot of unders. I think that kickoff nonsense they do is kind of, leading the games going over now. I think I heard somebody say it was worth like a point or two or something because of you get the ball in the 30, or you're able to return it now because you can't get a running start to kind of cover the kick and stuff like that. So I think that's affecting stuff. So on the year, overs are 91, unders are 85. Um, and then for the spread, it was a 6-6 in 1 week for the spread. So the public kind of was even, and it's even on the year. Ironically, they're 88 and 88, so there's really no noise there. As far as we are concerned, we actually had a good week. Finally, we went 7-5 last week, and we'll start with Chalky. Chalky went 2-1. However, he did lose his best bet, which was the Chargers, but he won with the Packers. That was kind of actually benefited a little with that, but that's fine. That's
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I took it at that, assuming Purdy may not play,
no.
and
Listen, I mean,
would have covered anyway, but I wouldn't have took it at 6.
when we yeah, but when we give out bets, if you put the show out usually an hour after the show's over, so
Yeah.
if anyone listens and they hear our voice and put the bet in, then they benefited too. So, but you won that game pretty easily, and then you won Dallas. We actually won outright, which was kind of crazy.
That was one of the crazy that like sequence between that was at the Bears game. I had red zone on going back and forth. That was like 10 or 15 minutes of
Oh
the
yeah,
craziest sequences I've ever seen.
Crazy.
that was
Yep.
crazy. I would have strangled that kick returner for returning that kick if I was
Oh
McCarthy.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
You
what are
go
you
down,
doing?
the game's over,
The
and
game's
then
over. Anyway, so I went 2-1 as well. I won my best bet with Seattle. I also won with the Panthers, who almost pulled off an upset on the Chiefs. But then my Colts pick was kind of really bad. They never had a chance in that game against the Lions. Meeker went 2-1. Guess what Meeker did with his best bet? He
lost.
lost again.
I
We'll,
got to do the
we'll get into
opposite.
that in a little bit. But Meeker lost his best bet with the Chiefs, which actually was a head-to-head with us. But he did have the over in that game, the Chiefs Panthers, so he hit that. And he also had Dallas. So you guys finally, you're now 2-7 when you have the same pick. And Tommy and I, which we'll get to Tommy's picks in a second. Well, let's get to Tommy's pick. So Tommy lost his best bet with the Raiders. He also lost with the Colts. So we both had that game. So we're now 21-8. You guys are 2-7 now. We all have the same pick, but he did hit his Packers pick, so he kind of benefited a little bit there too. Let's go to stats. So for the year, Chalky he's 20-15. He has a $344 profit, 57% win, 10% ROI. I'm 17-18. I'm a loss of $266, 49% win, negative 8% ROI. Meeker is 16-19, loss of $457, 46% win, minus 13% ROI. Tommy is 14-19, loss of $629, 42% win, minus 19% ROI. For the year, the pod is 68-74, loss of $1,218, 48% win, minus 8.6% ROI. We got to talk about best bets, Meeker, because your best bet record is something to behold. But I mean, I guess we'll give the year best bet records too. I'm 7-4 for the year, and lifetime I'm 27-18, 60% win percentage. Tommy's 5-6. He's 24-20 lifetime, 55% win. Chalky 5-7. Lifetime 24-23, 51% lifetime. Meeker 4-8 for the year. 19-27 lifetime, 41%.
I got to win every. Well, no, there's not even enough games in the season for me to even out. I
No,
don't
we're
think.
talking like immediate fade of your pick. Like whoever's listening out there, please, that's the best bet anyone could give us is the fade Meeker's best bet.
What's and Chalky's third bet? Is that still a thing
Yeah,
with you,
Chalky's
Chalky?
third bet's bad lifetime, and your
So
best bet.
so like it's the holiday season, but it was nothing short of an early Christmas miracle that I won my third bet, and I won my third bet having it be the same bet as one of Meeker's picks. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
that was
happens.
insane.
It happens but once a year, but when it does, it brings good cheer.
If
The
we
best,
could,
best of this miracle.
if we could get Meeker's best bet to be your third bet,
Yeah,
I mean
that would be a slam. That'd be a slam dunk.
you have to mortgage the house on
Yeah.
that bet. Like, fade it.
I would even bet against it.
If you're a
and I would
broker,
pick-
I would mortgage several people's houses without their knowledge to bet
Yeah.
against that. You know.
All right, so let's do lifetime overall. So I'm 80-60, $1,243 profit, 57% win, 9% ROI. Tommy is 67-66, Loss of 200 and I want to say $82. 50% win, or a little over 50%. Minus 2% ROI. Chalky 69 and 72. Loss of $854. 49% win, minus 6% ROI. Meeker 66 and 71. Loss of $1,142. 48% win, minus 8% ROI. The pod in total is 282 and 269. Loss of $1,035, 51% win, minus 1.9% ROI. So, with that being said, I did a lot of talking. Chalky, you're used to going first, so we're going to let you go first again.
So, as I was telling Jason before we started, two of my three picks that I had ready to go for Wednesday are already done and would have been winners. So, this is probably going to be 0 for 3. But nonetheless. My best bet is going to be Cincinnati -3 against the Steelers. That is minus 108. Steelers are getting the money. Cincinnati's home, but Cincinnati has to win out to even have a shot at the playoffs, and the Steelers are fighting it out for the division lead. So for Cincinnati to be a favorite there, and the money going on Pittsburgh, I'll go opposite that and take Cincinnati. Second pick is going to be under 47.5 in the Chargers-Falcons game. That is minus 112 on. No, I'm sorry. The under is minus 108. So that's under 47.5 minus 108 for Chargers-Falcons. And then my third one, I mean, I didn't have a fourth one, let alone a fifth one with my original picks. I'm going to end up on Baltimore minus 2.5, minus 118. I just don't have a good feel for any of these other games. And while the Eagles could win, it wouldn't be a shocker. I feel like Baltimore wins by at least a field goal in a close game. So I'll take Baltimore minus 2.5, minus 118. That was minus 3 earlier in the day, minus 108, but it's moved since then. So I'll take the 2.5.
Chalky, why didn't you try to do the Meeker approach and give the Packers as your best bet?
Well, see, last week I tried to be cute and take the under when there was like no points in the Steelers-Browns game, and then they scored like 65 in the second half. So I'm not going to go. My two picks that I would have had was the Packers as my second pick and the Raiders as my third pick behind Cincinnati. So those won and covered. So I will probably lose all three this week. We'll see.
All right, Meeker. Everybody's waiting for this best bet.
It's the Raiders.
Let's go.
Plus 10 and a half.
Sure it is. Yeah.
Chalky, have you ever bet?
Can I just interrupt 1 second and just say Meeker actually texted? I don't think you were on this group text yesterday. I think it was Omar and John. Meeker texted Gibbs over rushing yards sometime in the third quarter or something. He actually had the Gibbs.
Was it a live bet though? Was he giving out a live line?
I don't know, but all of a sudden
I had a three-team parlay on them, a 3-leg parlay, and I hit that. That was nice.
Those are the parlays we don't hear about until after they're already cashed.
Exactly.
I'll show you. I can text it to you, prove it to you.
That's all right. Now, don't waste my
Anyway.
time.
All right, I'm sorry. We need your best bet, Meeker. Let's go.
Have you ever bet against the Eagles on this podcast in your 3?
Have I bet me?
Chalky,
oh, I've picked.
Yeah, Chalky always does.
Yeah, I've never picked the Eagles to cover in my 3 picks because if I think they're going to cover, I just don't include that. But yeah, I picked against them against Dallas and Cincinnati recently.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, my best bet, which should probably just throw out, but my best bet this week is going to be under 49.5 in the Rams-Saints game, minus 112. Saints defense has been playing better since the coaching change. So, yeah, I think 49.5 is a lot of points, and I'm going to take that.
Can I interrupt a second? I just want to get inside the head of Meeker. Don't you think Vegas is aware?
Of course. You always ask the same question. It's still a lot of points, so we'll move on.
Okay.
Like Atlanta +1 at home against the Chargers, minus 108. And I'm going to take another under, even though things seem to be going over a lot lately. And that's under 42 Monday night, Cleveland, Denver, minus 112.
Chalky, did you check all these?
Those are all correct.
Minus 112?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to give Tommy's picks. So Tommy has his best bet, chalky. Uh, it's the same as yours. It's the Bengals -3, -108. And I don't have it as my best bet. I also have that bet. So
Oh, that's not good.
that could be a problem. Meeker, Tommy's second pick is the Falcons +1, -108. So Meeker and Tommy, and it might be the first time ever that you two had the same pick. And then Tommy's third pick is the Jaguars +3.5, -112. And Chalky double check me too, because when I wrote these down,
Yeah, the other two were obviously correct in the Jaguars 3.5, 112. So that's right.
-112. Okay. All right. So my best bet is going to be the Panthers +6, -112. Hopefully that didn't change.
It did not.
Okay. I think the Panthers are on a roll. I think they're playing well. I think Bryce Young's playing well. I'm going to take the Meeker approach here and say I don't know what Vegas is doing with this line because I think it's entirely too high for the Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's coming off a cakewalk against the Giants. And it's another road game for them. I don't know. The Panthers could win this game. Obviously, that's not going to be my bet, but I'm going to take the 6. But I don't know about that. I like the Panthers a lot in this game. My second pick is going to be the Cardinals +3.5, -115.
Yep.
I was against the Cardinals last week. I had the Seahawks as my best bet. I still think they're a pretty good team. I just didn't like that circumstance last week for them. Whereas I do like the circumstance this week because the Vikings are slightly overrated. I think they're coming home. They've been on the road. Teams that come off a long road trip and come home, sometimes that first game home is a clunker. So I like the Cardinals a lot in this game. I also think they could win this game, but that's not going to be my bet. I'm taking the 3.5. And as I mentioned, my third pick is the Bengals -3, -108. I think that's a shady line. Like, why are the Bengals giving 3 points against the Steelers? Steelers are obviously a better team. Bengals,
I forgot to mention extra rest because they played the Thursday night game last week. So Steelers had
right.
10
So,
days. Yeah.
so the Bengals bye is negated by the Steelers basically almost having the same time off as the Bengals had. So something just seems off with that. And I agree. I think it's a game where the Bengals are just going to come out and probably win pretty handily. So that's it. Those are my 3 picks. As I mentioned, it's going to be a short show tonight, unless you guys have anything else to interject.
Well, I have a randomish question. If we want to kill another minute. And Jason, maybe you saw this because you follow some of the same people I follow on Twitter. Las Vegas Sportsbook, so one of the biggest books out there, or sharpest books, gave out what the odds would be on a potential Detroit Eagles NFC Championship game, both at Detroit or at Philadelphia. Did you see that, or what?
I did not.
What would your guess be?
Okay, yeah, I did not see it. I would say if the game's in Detroit, I would say Detroit will be favored by 4.
And Philly?
And if it's here, I think it would be probably Detroit favored by 1.
Meeker?
If the game's in Detroit, I would say like 5.5. If it's in Philly, right around 1 or a push, somewhere around there.
So I would have been probably closer to Meeker. Obviously, Jason is closer than either of us would have been. So at Detroit, 3.5 Detroit.
Yeah.
At Philly, 1.5 Detroit. So only a 2-point difference, and it's not the same. It's not the same 3-point home advantage anymore. But I would have thought Detroit being home would have been a significant advantage, considering the two teams. And Goff is not made for the cold weather. That would be the one negative if they have to come to Philly. So that only being a 2-point difference surprised me. If you're going to tell me Detroit was 3.5 at home, I might have thought they made the Eagles a 1-point favorite in Philly. But surprised to see it was that close.
Detroit's probably one of those teams where you only get like 1.5 points for being at home.
Yeah, the atmosphere is not like it's going to throw you off, but I think the fact that playing in better conditions for that offense,
sure.
especially for Goff, is going to be, you know, if
Let me
it was like LA, it wouldn't be a difference because you're indoors or it's going to be warm anyway. But a 25, 30-degree game in Philly versus indoors there, I think would make some difference.
Now let me ask you this question: if those were the lines, and I mean, of course, a lot can happen between now and then, but if that game was being played today, and you had to bet it, would you bet the would you bet Detroit at home 3.5?
Yes.
I would, and the line, I was on pretty much right, I guess you could say, with my line. I think, and the only reason I guessed that is because I know I do follow the guys you follow, Chalky, and maybe who put this who put this out, because I honestly didn't see it.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and find it. I
But
don't remember, but I think
but the guy,
somebody I didn't know
okay,
put it out there, but somebody that I do follow retweeted it, and
okay,
yeah,
because the guys I follow love the Eagles. Like they have them
yeah.
ranked high in their whatever they the algorithms they put together. And I watched them, and I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. So I think that's why I had the line pretty much right. But I also think that the Lions would beat them. Obviously, it would be tougher for them to beat them here, but I definitely think they would beat them in Detroit.
Yeah,
So
the
what?
other thing I was thinking about with that Detroit line being as low as it was is that if you go much higher, you're going to take a lot of action on the Eagles, and they may not want to, because they think the Eagles are better than
Public
other
team,
people do. They might
yeah,
not want the liability of going to 4.5 or 5 and taking a lot of Eagles money. So
yeah.
Now, what are I mean in rank? If you're looking at this stuff right now, Chalky, where are the Eagles with winning the Super Bowl odds versus some of these AFC teams? Because I'm sure Detroit's number one, but who's the
I'm pulling it up now. I believe Bills are 2 right now. I want to say.
Bills are second.
All right, so now Kansas City's second, actually. Well, they did win, obviously. So Detroit is plus 260, 2.5. Call it the 1. Kansas City is 5-1. Eagles are 6-1. Bills are 6.5. The Bills are 6.5. Ravens are 7.5. I think some of that comes into, we kind of talked about before. It's, the Packers are getting hot, so they could certainly make a run. Right now, it looks like the Lions or the Eagles. If something happens with the Lions, the Eagles are the next in line, then it's everybody else in the NFC. And the Eagles are not on the same line as the Lions at all. So their chances of getting to the Super Bowl as an individual team are better than the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens right now. You got to get there to win it. So I think that sort of plays into it a little bit.
Right.
But, I mean, they're right where they should be in terms of ranking. I mean, it's Lions, Eagles, then a gap. You got to go to the Packers at 13-1, and then the Vikings at 18-1. So those are probably right online.
Yeah.
Maybe Packers. There's a little bit of value, but they're not going to win the division.
Yeah, I think I think you could throw the Packers into that level that you mentioned in the NFC, right? I think it's going to be one of those three.
Yeah.
I still don't believe in the Vikings. I don't.
No, I don't think you can go any deeper than the Packers. I'm okay
No, I
putting them in
don't.
the conversation, but
Sam
I
Darnold's
can't go
not
past them.
winning no NFC Championship games, so I don't see that happening. And the AFC, I think you go with the top three teams there too. I don't see anybody else but. And I don't even honestly. I'm starting to not think the Chiefs are getting there because I don't. Their offense is broken. The offensive line is a mess. Like Mahomes is. If you watch that game today, that offensive line is in shambles. So I think it's going to be the Ravens or Bills. But you have to obviously you have to keep the Chiefs in that level too.
Yeah. I mean, let's say
And
nobody's gotten to a third straight Super Bowl, let alone won a third straight Super Bowl. So, or no, I'm sorry. Teams have gone to 3 straight, but they've never. No team has gotten to a third consecutive Super Bowl after winning the first 2.
Dallas didn't because the
No.
49ers beat them that one year, right? In '94.
Yeah, Dallas.
Dallas beat the Bills twice,
and then
and then
49ers,
the 49ers beat Dallas. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the Dallas Patriots and now, including last year, the Chiefs have all won 3 and 4 years, but none of them went 3 consecutive years.
But the Bills went 4 straight
And
years.
where did you see it?
Yes, to lose 4 straight years. Yeah.
Where did you? I'm sorry. Where did you put? Where's the Ravens on this list of?
Ravens are so AFC is bunched together. Chiefs are 5-1, Bills are 6.5-1, Ravens are 7.5-1. So they're third right now, and that I think part of that is like they're 2 games or whatever. They're 2 games back in the division. They're only 7-5, so they're not going to get home field throughout, and they may not even win their division. So you're going to have to play 3 games, and they might all be on the road.
Who's 7-5? The Ravens.
Are they 7? Are they? No,
they're 8-4. Yeah.
8-4. Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But they had Steelers have the tiebreaker right now from having beaten them. So.
Yeah, I actually bet the Steelers to be under 11 wins or something. I forget what my bet was, but it pretty much was like the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are going to win 3 more games this year. If you look at their schedule, I don't see them winning 3 more games this year.
Yeah, I'm looking now. So Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals. Yeah,
that's 2 to me. That's 2 and 4.
Yeah, it's tough.
2 and 4 if they're lucky. I mean, Browns at home they should win, and maybe you get that Bengals game at the end of the year. But
look at their win. Look at their win total. You could get plus money on my bet as of the other day. Now I don't know if that still was as of like 2 days ago.
Well, I mean, just look at this. Ravens are 7.5-1 to win the Super Bowl. Steelers are 35-1, and the Steelers have a game and a half up in the division right now.
Yeah, the Steelers, they're not. I mean, they're a fraud. They're a team that'll lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, and I think Houston's another one. They'll win that division, and somebody will go in there and beat them. Houston's not good this year. Stroud's
struggling.
Putting Stroud in the Hall of Fame. Better hit the brakes on that.
So the value, I mean, if you all think that there's like 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl, Eagles, Lions, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. So the value would be
I think the Packers. I think the Packers could win the Super Bowl.
I don't know.
I mean, listen.
They're the third team in the NFC, I would think, yeah.
I mean, I would,
but if they have to go on the road to Philly or they have to go to the road to Detroit, I don't think they're winning. I don't think they have a chance.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, AFC as far as value, it's the Bills or the Ravens. I think. NFC.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody's just because it's the Chiefs putting them in there, but they their offense is just their offensive line is bad right now.
Yeah, I didn't see the game today because I was working, but what was going on? Like, was Mahomes pressured the whole game? I really didn't see it a second of this game.
I mean, Crosby was destroying their tackle.
Did the Raiders have a chance of winning this game, or
the Raiders should have won the game?
Really?
They had the ball on a 30-yard line with 15 seconds left. They spiked the ball. It was second down. They spiked the ball. No timeouts left. Why they ran another play, I don't know. But Aiden O'Donnell, whatever his name was in the pistol, and he was calling out his plays. And apparently the right guard tapped the ass of the center because I guess he thought he heard O'Donnell say, or O'Connell, what's his name? O'Connell?
O'Connell.
Yeah.
He thought he heard him say, snap it. He snapped it. It hit him. He wasn't ready for it. Fumble. Chiefs fell on it. Game was over.
That was it.
Typical Chiefs win.
It was unbelievable.
I mean, it was, we were talking about, I kicked the field goal at 15 seconds, but there was a couple, they were out of timeouts because they burned the timeout before the 2-minute warning to not punt and then go for a field goal when you should just let the clock run out and then you take the delay game and you punt it, or if they decline it, then you can go for the field goal. A lot of bad choice, a lot of bad coaching decisions in the last 2 days to say the least. But I think there was, watching the replay, the line all moved together. So the line was on a different, it seemed like the whole line was on a different count than
Maybe.
than O'Connell was because I mean, unless the center yells out when he snaps the ball, they're not all going to move the same time if they're not expecting it. So they all, I think there was obviously confusion, but it seemed like the whole line was on a different page
It could
than
be.
O'Connell was. Yeah,
But there's no reason to run the play.
no,
Because
you bring the field goal unit on, you
the
kick the
only
field
thing that
goal.
could happen is a disaster. You could
Yeah.
get sacked. You could throw a pass, and the guy gets catch the ball in bounds. There's no good that is
After
coming.
yesterday, I don't know how you just don't say kick the
Yeah,
field
right.
goal and go with it. And when you're at the 30-yard line, it wasn't like they were at the 45 and they needed another 5 yards
No,
at
they were at
least.
the
It
30
was
yard
you
line.
just kick it and you hope Mahomes can't score in 10 seconds.
Unbelievable.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, I guess it was normal timed episode this week. So that's it for this week. Have a good weekend, and we will see you next week.